This is the part of the show where Matt and I get to ask Bruce a technical question about printing.
Uh-oh.
So,
All
so
right,
let's. I want to bring it full circle, actually, Stephen. I'll let you ask a question too, but I want to bring it full circle. What we talked about earlier. So, what I want to know is when Stephen and I mentioned that a job was at a certain LPI, what were we referring to? And if you're doing a sim process or a simulated process job, what would be a good minimum LPI to start outputs with?
Oh my gosh.
Can you explain LPIs?
The latter question
Yeah.
I do not know, so I'm just going to tell you that right now. But being in graphic design previously, is before Printavo world, I was always doing freelance design. And so in Photoshop, you had to always set the... What was the setting? Was it DPI? Or was it when you create a new file?
So
like pixels per inch?
it might be listed, well, PPI would be for web. It may be DPI. DPI and LPI are oftentimes interchangeable, kind of, but you'll set your file DPI, but your output is an LPI. So when you're dealing, when you're, yes, exactly. So a canvas, an artboard, you're going to set in a DPI, and that's usually ideally 300 DPI. It can be a little bit lower, and you might be okay depending on what kind of file you're printing. But your output is what that's going to go lines per inch. That's what's going to actually go onto your film or onto your screen, direct to screen, anything like that. So when we were saying it was put out at 45 LPI, the dots were exaggerated slightly more because it was a lower kind of a resolution, right? So when you're dealing with simulated process, unless you really, really are designing it to work at a lower LPI, which I've seen it done, but it's pretty rare. Usually you want to start off at minimum 55. I prefer 65, and you can go higher. There's some arguments that 75 is even better. There's some arguments saying that 75 is too detailed and that you get muddy, but 45 is a little bit too low.
All right, I'm going to give Bruce one that's easier.
That was
Bruce,
easy. I mean, you guys forgot. I was doing all the artwork approvals and SEPs back in our little manual shop days.
Can you walk us through? Can you walk us through the reclaim process, please?
Ooh. Oh man, I'm thinking back in our little garage. Actually, I'm trying to remember the chemical names though. When we bought all the equipment, everything was in spray bottles, and he's like, "That's 305, or that's 400, or whatever." Like all the different ones were. But yeah, no. First, and actually, I had a refresher at Matt's shop a couple months ago, so that helped. But yeah, no, we scrape off the ink, we put it back in the bucket, then we spray the. I can't remember the name.
But explain what it's doing, and that'll be good enough because the names are going to be different based on...
It like takes off the ink, and you use the rag, and you pull it off. Okay, cool. And then you go in, you put it into the dip tank, which starts to break up the emulsion. You spray it out, and and then we use the degreaser, which I believe got off the Ghost images, right? Or was that a separate one?
In what we were using, Easy Way products. 701's a dehazer, degreaser.
Yeah, we had to do that too, which, it's funny because you learn that from it happening, right? When you're printing, just like we learned not to stuff the dryer with shirts when you're running a last minute job. But yeah, that was it. Then we just let it dry.
I think he passed. I think he passed. I
think he passed.
I don't know the automated equipment, but...
I mean, it's going to be different based on whose automated equipment you're getting to, but you got the short of it. You were using an ink degradant on press to break down the ink to avoid it going down the drain. You then put it into a dip tank to soften the emulsion. You blast it out, use a dehazer and a degreaser, and you get that clean. The most important step is you rinse it at the end, a full clean rinse. That way there's no leftover chemistry in there. And then we vacuum off the water with a vacuum wand at that point, and then put it in the dry box. But yeah, I think you passed.
I think you passed.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right. We'll have to get a little tougher next week.
Chris, I need sound effects. Anything past the garage screen printing world, I will have no idea. But
I'm going to question you on art stuff more because you keep saying you did art in the past, and I've seen you send over files for me to print. I don't know.